Higher than expected ending stocks for both corn and soybeans. The impact of this is going to be commented by Jerry Gidel right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends. In agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, both corn and soybeans, as I mentioned in the introduction, are above what the market expected for ending stocks. And of course, at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, corn has closed lower.
Yeah, corn closed lower. Beans, though, didn't follow the script here from the standpoint that it actually got lots of enthusiasm even before the USDA report came through. From there, reports kind of circulated maybe to help justify the rally, primarily because we took out a downtrend line here in the spot July, and it's been creeping up all along but there's some talk that some U.S. traders were sending actual beans to Europe, and one of them was to Spain. We had a sale to them earlier in the week, and we had an unknown destination today. Don't know if that's going to Europe, but that alludes to it, so that the meal would stay there, and then they could be able to bring the oil back to help with the expanded renewable diesel demand that's definitely on the upswing here for 2013-14 for next year. So that was part of it. But yeah, you mentioned that both of them were slightly higher than the trade estimates, but both of them were very modest increases here. In beans, we're only 5 million over the average guesstimate at 350 million. And on the corn, we were only 3 million above the average estimate here from Reuters at 2.257 billion. Both those are substantial numbers, but they're not. And I think that the whole issue here of the dryness in the Midwest, really starting from eastern Nebraska and that all the way to Ohio and even up into Michigan and Wisconsin. And then you throw in parts of Missouri too. I think I remember that they're really in the midst of the drought monitor, and that is definitely a big factor here. Now, I realize that it's early in the season, and the impact for dry weather can be overcome a little bit. But boy, there were some interesting field shots updated on the internet this week about some areas that definitely has run out of some moisture along the way and looks pretty tough. Even some rains on some of those. I'm not sure how much is going to rebound on them accordingly, but definitely a combination of the weather outlook and to some extent the production numbers, or excuse me, the ending carryover stocks today not being surprising. Kind of negated some of the fear. There's always somewhat of a whisper campaign that goes on ahead of these reports from the people in the trading community that sometimes don't always connect with the idea of what the trade average analysts are. And so I think there's a lot of fear that there might be some big cuts in exports right across the board here, and that didn't happen. We did end up having, as I said, some cuts in it. We had a 15 million cut in beans. Nothing else by the way, in old crop beans. Wheat, actually, that market specifically didn't have any adjustments in the numbers, and I was one of the people that's advocating we see a 35 million decrease in exports because of how we've been shipping things. But there has been a last-minute push on wheat. Now, on the corn, we did have a 50 million increase, 50 million decline in corn there in exports, but here we are. They took imports down 25. They cut feed and seed, which is other than ethanol kind of usage. And all of a sudden, we only a 35 million increase. So overall, things definitely weren't as nasty as they could be.
Now, in the soybeans world, we had yet another reduction for the Argentine crop that's in the final stretch of harvest.
Right, right. Well, I think the USDA last time around, I think took a time out there and left their production number at 27 million because supposedly the Argentine Ag Department had their number at 27. I guess a tip of the hat to that, but uh, they moved their number down. Excuse me, uh, uh, 2 million on soybeans and that, and then from there, so we ended up having some impact on that. The twist of it is that the USDA also increased their estimate for Brazil by 1 million. So we only had a net decrease in Argentina and South America's number of only 1 million metric tons. And the world numbers didn't make a lot of adjustments. We had the big jump last month in the soybeans because of the expectations of Argentina jumping back into a 48 to 50 million kind of crop. And so that's a big difference from the 25 they have right now from the USDA. So that's the one that had a modest change. Same thing on corn, by the way, in South America, since we're talking it up here. They did decrease their, Argentine crop on corn, 2 million also. That's an interesting one, but they just started on exports at this point. Beans are pretty well running down, pretty well over with. Interestingly enough, the Argentine Buenos Aires exchange still is down there at 21, 22 million on beans, and on corn there, I think they're 34 on that one. And so there's still some potential problems down there in Argentina. Brazil, there's still optimism out there that the crop sizes are going to be the same or higher. Brazil's our corn number was increased by 2 million also here, as we mentioned in that one. And the interesting thing, we really haven't started. It'll be starting this week, late this week, early next, the early part of the harvest and the safrinha crop, and Paraguay and Mato Grosso do Sul, they're not supposed to be starting for another could be a month or more later. And there was some threats of some freeze down there, but it looks like that possibility of being below freezing has been moderated, at least at this point. But it's the projection for that timing is the mid to late next week.
Yes, and looking forward, I see a lot of problems of dryness in several regions of the United States, including key regions such as Kansas and Illinois.
Oh, definitely. They expanded drought monitor this week, which was really kind of centered around a area from south of 74 for a little bit down towards Champaign. And that's expanded dramatically. It's cooked up with the dryness we're having around here in the Chicagoland area, which not too many corn and beans are planted here, but and then Kansas is still right in the heart, and in Missouri, the place to look for corn and soybeans is north of the I-70 corridor from St. Louis to Kansas City. Below that area is mostly is not the highly productive area of corn and soybeans, either in the Boot Hill down on the Mississippi or in the southwest corner down there in Missouri. So that's a state that's definitely under the gun too on prospects at this point. But as I said, this week we've had a kind of the battle of the weather models. The European model hasn't really projected a lot of rain around here, half an inch or so, which we've had possibilities and scattered opportunities. My backyard's only had 2/10 and 1/10 and two different events over the last 3 weeks when it was supposed to rain, a hell of a lot more than that. So right now that the European models in that the American or GFS model is more optimistic, but I heard that the noon update today from the GFS backed out some of their moisture. I haven't seen a total on that yet for that model as to what they're projecting, but in general here, not that the world is going to completely collapse here if we don't get a rain this weekend, but it really sets the tone, I think, again, as people's concerns about the crop size. Because the one thing that some people were looking for and but didn't happen was there was going to be some kind of adjustment in the USDA's corn and soybean planting slash yields, and that's really very minimal prospects of that happening. Last year we actually had the decrease in the yield estimate. It was way back in the May number. It wasn't in the June. And normally it's only one or two times that has seen the June number go down. The real reason is the fact is that the USDA has an acreage report at the end of the month, and so they started adjusting things ahead of that report. They're in jeopardy of something coming through and going a different way than so they're better off just to leave things alone. And that's what they tended to do again this year. And so I think that's really and wheat, that wasn't the case. They could have made some adjustments here on the harvested areas. They didn't. That was another strange event here, considering the kind of reports we got from the Kansas Wheat Tour. The one thing they did do, and it increased their hard red number about, I think it was 11 million, in that they increased Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, and one more state from there, 2 bushels here because of the rain activity that's around. But I wonder if we lose. Well, in my case, I think somewhere between 500,000 and 700,000, maybe in 1 million acres of harvested area. A lot of that's in Kansas, particularly, by the way, and that it's not very economical to go out and harvest something that's 10 bushels or less. The cost of your rental of the combine and dealing with it and all that kind of stuff, you're not making any money going out and harvesting a wheat field with only 10 bushel prospects. So I wonder if that's definitely going to be a part of our July report, but it was a little surprising we didn't have a little peek at that idea this month.
Yes, and other things to put into the context of corn and soybean prices is the cattle rally that we had when the reverse sentiment going over the last few days, and yet higher energy prices such as crude oil.
Yeah, the crude oil has been a subtle thing that's started building. That's because we had the OPEC decide to do a selective reduction in their output, and that they wanted to get off of $70 a barrel type situation, and the other thing is interesting. Even in the U.S., it's been when we're looking at our ethanol demand, I suspect that we're going to have a little stronger driving season. Normally that picks up in May. It hasn't really done that yet. And I wonder, I'm not sure what's going on. I guess people are flying or going big vacations. They're not driving around the Midwest and that type of thing. But I think things will change. I think after a couple of years of everybody being cooped up at home, I think there's still going to be a lot of travel activity going on, and that. So it's something to definitely keep an eye on here from that standpoint. Is that the whole economic scenario right now has been a little shaky. There's been a lot of people wanting to talk about a recession, and and to some extent, it's been a little surprising how the economy keeps hanging on here a little bit stronger than they expect. So that will be a real feature as we go into later this year. It doesn't look like that they're going to end up increasing the interest rates this month very much. If it's anything, it's a quarter, and I think there's some talk it's going to be unchanged on the interest rates from the Fed, and that's an interesting twist right now. We've had so many increases over the last year, and now there's a very sensitivity here of not pushing it over the edge.
Yes, and what else are you looking in the coming days, next week?
Well, next week's situation is really going to be a reaction to the rain event that might happen this weekend, where it rains, where it doesn't rain. I kind of feel like that overall here we're still going to be concerned about the general dryness that's across the Midwest at this point. And there, I don't think we're going to end up getting enough, what I would call a 1 to 2 inch general rain from Omaha, Nebraska to Columbus, Ohio. I don't think that's on our agenda here at this point. Now, one of the things that the world continues to be optimistic about is El Nino's going the way, and this kind of stuff. The Australians are a little bit cautious on it, but everybody is kind of looking at that scenario, and it's going to be, that means there's going to be a better prospects here in the U.S. for more more precip. But I think the other key feature is the fact that our jet stream has been split here because of a blocking mechanism in front out over Hawaii. And I think that's, at this point, I haven't seen it change. So that could still be a big factor. Weather is still a major factor in that. We've been talking about improved weather, and it hasn't helped the wheat crop in a big way. And right now we're off to kind of a struggle here on the corn and soybean crops. I wouldn't say soybeans at this time of year need a lot of moisture, so they usually can hang in there. But corn, it's still needs moisture to keep on moving, and be able to produce a good crop. And some places in the country, if you pointed out here, definitely haven't seen the rains that they think they need. So I'm looking forward to a choppy but maybe higher market.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Talk to you later. Have a good weekend.